And we're live in three, two, and welcome back, folks, to another episode of the Planet Mullins podcast. I know you think it's Dustin Hoffman, but it's actually, what did Jeff Lorber call you again? The most unknown known produced music?
The most famous unknown musician, out there.
The most famous unknown musician. But my guest today, Jeff Carruthers. Check this out, folks, new viewers and returning viewers. He's worked with Macy Gray, Kanye West, Bobby Brown, Norman Brown, Dave Koz, Chris Boney, Peter White, Richard Elliott, Huge Group, Paul Brown, Boney James, gold record with him, Jeffrey Osborne, Jamie Foxx, and Larry Carlton. Holy crap. Say hello to Jeff Carruthers, everybody. Hi, Jeff.
Hey, Rob.
Man, that's insane. I mean, that's unbelievable. But, the way that we, for everybody that wants to know, the way that we connected was over an associate of Jeff's that he worked with named Clarence. Is it Avant or Avant?
I've always said Avant, but it could be Avant. I never called him by his full name. So
Yeah, right. Well, I think it's an interesting place to start. You and I connected over Clarence recently passing, and I have some other friends that knew him pretty well. And his house also last year or 6 months ago was robbed, and there was a problem with all these crime things going on in LA. But for those of you that don't know about Clarence, he was called the Black Godfather of music. And Jeff, how did you guys meet? You said it was during the 80s, right?
it was about the late 80s. I had been working with a couple of guys that had a production company doing records for MCA and Motown, starting in about, 86 or so, I'd say. And they had done Cool It Now for New Edition. So they had a huge hit that was #1 on the pop charts. So we were getting a lot of placements, and I started out kind of as a tech guy, running the.
Really?
Yeah, well, remember Atari something track, SMPTE track, an old computer sequencing
Yeah.
program. Yeah, but like I said, I was doing songs on the side, and I'd slip them a cassette, every week, and so, hey, check these out. And they liked my stuff, and co-wrote something, and got on my first platinum record that way with a group on Motown called The Boys back then. So then the way I met Clarence was because they signed a singer, a guy named Demetrius Perry, and I started working with him, and we were writing together, and basically they turned that project over to me, because he was unknown and hadn't had anything out yet, and they were working on a little more high profile stuff. At any rate, so Clarence had signed him, and that's when I met Clarence, going up to his office and making a deal with him, and meeting his attorneys and all that, and his PR people, and
Right.
and like I said, the secretary, the gatekeeper chick.
Well, we're old enough to know what gatekeeper chick means as a phrase, but I think the younger people, will just let them try and figure that out.
Okay.
But I mean, I had kind of a similar experience when I was in Wayne Henderson's office from the Crusaders, and I was trying to hang on to my publishing rights.
Mm-hmm.
And their studio was Wide Tracks at Selma and Wilcox. It was down the street from where you were at. But I remember just being terrified going in there with my music and thinking, what's going to happen to my, publishing? And I've worked on all this stuff. And obviously, you're a great writer. It's very well proven. And you do all these other things. What was your first meeting with Clarence like? Was he cool, or were you mostly stuck with the lawyers, or what?
No, it was just one-on-one with Clarence, and just in his office and looking around at all the pictures of him with Bill Clinton and all these other presidents, and Quincy Jones pictures, and then all, the Grammy awards and all this stuff that he had gathered over the years, from, doing all the stuff that he had done. And, seeing all the platinum records from the SOS band, Alexander O'Neill, all the stuff that he was doing at the time, a publishing deal for Babyface.
Wow.
And, so I mostly was just kind of in awe of being, for the first time sitting with a high power record executive with just me, because I had been assigned this thing, and he's like, go make the deal. He's interested. So,
wow.
Yeah. So, but he was very, very gracious the first time I met him, and there wasn't really any, business talk. It was just, do you need some help? I liked, because he liked this one song a lot that I had done with the artist. And I can go on. He ended up going to New York and sat down with Tommy Mottola up at Columbia, and they were talking about putting that song on Mariah Carey.
Wow.
And he called me from New York and said, look, Tommy Mottola's here, and I want to manage you, Jeff, because he wants this song for Mariah. And I'm like, okay, hook it up. Yeah, hook it up, And of course, a few weeks went by, and I'm going up there, because sometimes you just had to go up there and wait for him to to see him. And,
right.
and I'd be waiting there, and Babyface would be waiting too, or some of these big stars that were out there with big hits would be waiting out there too. And then here I was, and I'd be like, I love your work, man.
I really like that one album.
Yeah.
Well, this is kind of going back into your thing. So you started out on the tech side, but did you come at music from keyboards or guitar or drums or vocals, or how did you get that part?
Yeah, I came as a guitar player. I'd been playing in guitar bands for, since I was a teenager. And I ended up making my living in a nightclub band, playing all over the place. And all, back then, they hired bands to play in nightclubs. And so we were traveling all over the Western United States, all through California. And I did that for about 10, 12 years as a guitar player. So, playing all the top 40 hits, of course, and singing. And so kind of, cutting my chops and how to make a hit song, just not really thinking about it, but, osmosis into my brain from learning all those songs.
So you think that the education that you got was certainly comparable to the kind of thing that one of these modern music schools would offer, right? Because for me, I didn't graduate college. I went to New York and studied with a theory guy, and he told me just to write. He said, you've got a lot of music in you, need to write and you need to record your stuff. But isn't it interesting that after you did all of that cover band stuff and studied those songs, that now you've had more hits than any other unknown guy in LA? It's like, it's amazing, just with all these artists and stuff that you've done. Now, did your song make it onto the Mariah thing or no?
It did not. But what's funny is when that record came out, there was a song that sounded a lot like it.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. A lot like it. But what are you going to do? The one thing about Clarence, though, is after a few weeks went by after that conversation from New York with the Mariah thing, I was bugging him like, hey, what's happening with that? And you said you wanted to manage me. And that's when he said, I can't get into this right now. I'm doing a multi-million-dollar publishing deal for Babyface. And, we'll have to talk later. But then he did call me one time because he had, I guess his attorney or somebody forgot to get my publishing on his record. I wanted to tell you when you were talking about, your publishing, nightmare with Wayne Henderson. And it was the same thing with me. And he called me up and he was like, what's this? I don't have the publishing on these songs. I need to have these publishing on these songs. He's like, it's kind of threatened me,
Yeah.
right?
Wow.
Should I tell you what he said, or
Huh.
I don't know, maybe I shouldn't. Okay. So anyways, it was a pretty good threat. And I'm like, well, dude, I've always, with the guys I've been working with, we could keep our own publishing, but hey, if it means, keeping you happy, I just want to get, I want to get the record out there. So whatever it takes, I'm fine with it. So I acquiesced.
Well, that's the era of a lot of those guys from that era. I mean, and through Wayne Henderson, I met Hubert Laws that I still play with. I'm in his group, and Ronnie, and I had a lot of conversations that were kind of scary for me back in the 90s. But, we all learn from that stuff and then, of course, keep on creating things. But before we go too much deeper into it, some of these names here of folks that you've worked with are just unbelievable. And in a way, it kind of looks like you might be one of the founders or the pioneers of what we, to me, sadly call smooth jazz now. But, was your involvement in, with Dave Koz and some of these other folks, when contemporary jazz kind of took a back seat and all the radio stuff kind of narrowed the formats, did you feel like that inhibited your writing and what you were able to do, or did you have to work around it, or did that impact you?
Well, not at all, because, a lot of I'm a, Mr. Magic, or the Grover Washington tune, George Benson, Breezin' and stuff like that. I mean, that was kind of like the start of easy jazz, easy listening jazz, pop jazz, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
And so while that's going on, I'm, either playing in clubs, or now I'm working for this production company doing all this R&B stuff, right? So I've got all these songs that are these R&B tunes with vocals on them.
Mm.
So the first smooth jazz record I did was with Boney James.
Wow.
And basically I had these tunes and they hadn't been placed. They weren't really going anywhere, just kind of demos. So we took the vocals off and he played on saxophone the melody that the vocal had been singing.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Yeah. And that was his first record, Trust.
Wow.
Yeah. But right before that, we did Sam Riney. Do you remember Sam Riney at all?
I see Sam almost every day on Facebook, and throws me a thumb up.
Sam Riney could have been Boney James, but he quit that label. He wanted to go more legit, because it was like on this little label called Spindletop out of Texas.
Remember Spindletop?
And I was working with Paul Brown, who was recording all this stuff for Sam and producing his records. And I guess Boney was playing with Randy Crawford at the time.
Oh.
And so Paul offered him to take the spot at Spindletop. And Boney said yes. So, and Paul and I had been working together for this label on MCA called Gasoline Alley. And we were co-producing a lot of stuff together back in the late 80s, early 90s. So that's our relationship, goes back a long way.
Wow. So Paul, like when you guys first started working together, you were probably kind of like Becker and Fagan in a way. You each had your own kind of niche and roles, and we'd put it all together, or what?
Yeah, I would say so. I was like the guy that would program all the tracks, and he was the guy that would make it sound good in the studio. Yeah, he came from an engineering background, working with Lee Hirschberg at Amigo Studios, for a long time.
Wow.
And I actually met him when I was doing the project for Clarence Avant. I was looking for an engineer, and he got recommended from someone, and I went and met him and heard some of his stuff, and it sounded great. And In fact, we recorded that first record at Amigo.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things I always do with guests when they come on, especially, people who have made it through all the BS and are kind of at the stratosphere, iconic of, certain eras and genres. What do you think about what's going on with the music business today? And if there was a young you, a guitar player in a cover band, trying to kind of get some music out and get a publishing deal or some sync licensing, like, do you think those same kind of opportunities you had exist now, or is it a whole different planet?
It's a whole different planet for sure. There's probably not a record executive that, well, I mean, I wouldn't have been able to approach one either without my connections. I mean, you definitely need some kind of connections to do that. But I figure that, you're gonna have to keep your day job, because there is really not a lot of, I don't know if there's any top 40 type bands anymore, maybe here and there, like one night at a time, but I don't know where you could do like make a living like 5-6 nights a week like I did back then. At any rate, I know some people that are doing the band thing right now, and they do their gigs and they just do their music and they have their day jobs and they keep putting out their YouTube things and they just keep growing their fan base. And that's about the best you can do, is to try to capture a fan base and grow it and grow it and grow it until you just get more and more attention. I think that's the only way to do it now.
Okay. Yeah, I was kind of looking at some of these bands from a few years ago. I think one of them was called Mumford and Sons, and another one was called Paramore. And,
Yeah.
They were these indie guys that just built their thing to a certain level. And I think what a lot of the young artists that I speak with think is that you don't really need the big machine, or you don't need the connections. You can do it all yourself. But when those particular bands got to a certain level, all of a sudden it was like they were snatched up by the big machine, and they became the huge bands. But I don't think they could
that's what
on their own.
No, that's what the power of a campaign that's got hundreds of thousands of dollars to spend can do for you. It can get you out there. I mean, it's just really advertising, right?
Right. Well, since we're going that route real quick, what was the biggest publishing check you ever got for a song you wrote?
$100,000.
Ah, okay, kids out
And
there.
that was actually a song that a number one song in Japan
What?
that I had. Yeah, by a 4-girl group. It was like 1999 or 2000. And it was a big, huge record. I got the platinum, triple platinum thing on my wall.
Wow, 100 grand is doesn't go as far as it did, but 100 grand is 100 grand.
Yeah, 100 grand 23 years ago was pretty sweet. I mean, it'd be nice today too.
Absolutely. Well, I noticed here in your bio something that I thought was pretty interesting. And I wonder if it applies to what you do in music, the fact that you've got a degree in psychology.
Well, yeah, I went to college, and it was so hard to get classes when you're a freshman, and I was always really attracted to the music department anyway, because I was doing that, on the side. Even I started college at 17 and a half, probably not quite 18. And I was in a band, and we were playing weekends, in the valley where I grew up, the San Fernando Valley. And I went to college, and so I didn't know, like a lot of kids, I guess, they don't really know what they want to do, but they just go to college because they got in. But anyways, I was spending a lot of time in the music department, and I ended up getting into the classical guitar, program, because They had nothing else. Back then, there was no recording arts sciences. There was no pop guitar. There was no electric guitar. If you wanted to be a guitarist in the music department, you had to play classical guitar. So without ever doing it before, I didn't stand a chance to be a classical guitarist, but that's what I wanted to. So, I mean, I wanted to be in that department. So I did. I studied and, learned the best I could. And, that was also a big help to my playing as well. I mean, learning all that technique, the right and left hand technique, and that giant neck on a classical guitar is a lot different than a Strat.
Oh, I can imagine. Well, we're about to run out of time. For those of you that don't know about one of the most successful, unknown, and wonderful guys in LA, a Valley boy, not a Valley girl, a Valley boy. My guest today has been Jeff Carruthers. He's just a monster producer, engineer, writer, and we've been talking about Clarence Avant, who he worked with and did a bunch of projects with. And I can't thank you enough for coming on to share your story today, Jeff. Thanks for being a guest.
One more plug. I've been working for Big Fish Audio doing libraries for, since the mid 2000s. And I got a bunch of titles. All you got to do is go to Big Fish Audio and type in my name, Jeff Carruthers.
Okay.
And all the titles will come up.
Wow, that's fantastic. Well, I know Greg Seltz is going to be happy we finally got together. And I am and I am super happy about getting a chance to hear about your brilliant career. And that's all the time we got today, folks. So we're going to wrap it up. Thanks again, Jeff. And folks, you can find him at Big Fish Audio. And this will be the end of another episode of the Planet Mullins podcast, season 6. We're cruising right along. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.